And I made a forecast. I said, without significant, substantial political reform, my concern is in your next elections, you will produce a leader worse off than George W. Bush.
Of Chinese people saying it's good to have wealth, it's good to have gross product, it's good to have exportation, but it's good also to have human rights, I think that this would be a great news for humanity.
So, would you recommend to your government to go out in the world and promote what you think is good governance and less democracy, promote the cause of less democracy or non-democracy?
No. Whether you can seek truth or facts.
I went in this
with all these surveys. I'll give you another figure.
I spent my youth between Bangladesh and Burma. I know exactly what is the fate of a cursed Muslim people in this environment.
But impose a system only creates more disaster.
You are about to watch a segment of an international dialogue featuring Professor Zhang Weiwei. Zhang Weiwei is the director of the China Institute at Fudan University and one of China's most prominent scholars of political science and international relations. He is known for building Chinese discourse and challenging Western narratives, making him one of the most distinctive voices in contemporary Chinese political thought. This part of the dialogue focuses on China. Could it become a modern governance model alternative to Western democracy? Zhang Weiwei approaches this question from the perspective of China as a civilizational state, responding to questions about institutional competition while also facing sharp critiques from Western scholars on universal values, democratic mechanisms, and human rights standards. The discussion revolves around three key questions. 1. Can China's governance model truly serve as a viable alternative to Western democracy? 2. Is democracy simply one person, one vote, or is there a deeper standard of governance? 3. Most importantly, is the world entering a new era of institutional competition? Let's dive into this in-depth conversation about modern states, civilizational principles, and the future of governance. If you're interested in this topic, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. We are gathering more rational voices from the English-speaking world, so please subscribe, like, and share our channel.
I also made another prediction 6.5 years ago. I said the United States and China both need political reforms. But in the case of China, small reforms have been going on all the time in the political system. We fix problems here and there. But I said, the problem is the United States. Your political system was a product of pre-industrial era. And I made a forecast. I said, without significant, substantial political reform, my concern is in your next elections, you will produce a leader worse off than George W. Bush.
So then, so it was you, it was not the Russians.
Yeah. So this is the Chinese humble advice we can offer. But China is a civilizational state. I remember when Henry Kissinger wrote his famous book on China, he started with this quote. He said, my goodness, look at this China. It's different. China uses this unique language, which started 3,500 years ago. It's 1,000 years earlier than ancient Greek, 1,500 years earlier than ancient Latin. But these two European languages were dead languages. Chinese are still using the same language. This line of culture and continuation of civilization, uninterrupted. So this is why we have, indeed, for instance, this whole idea of meritocracy. Why I say confident? I said with my debate with Professor Fukuyama, I said, if you look at the top leadership in China, we've just had the party's Congress, minimum requirement, 2 terms of provincial governor or similar position, which means you have to govern at least 100 million people, given the size of China, before you came to one of the top 7 positions, decision-making bodies. I said to Fukuyama, I said, with this Chinese methodology, meritocracy-based system, we can say with certainty, we can improve the system. There are problems, we can fix it. But we will not produce any leaders like George W. Bush. It's way below the Chinese bar. That's my point.
I respect deeply more than respect. I admire Chinese civilization. I admire Chinese history. I have been all my life an admirer of Chinese art. Since I was a very young man, China has been one of the compass of my life, but I don't admire your political system. And I find much more admirable and worth of respect a system when you have the right to make a strike, when you have the right to be paid decently, when you have the right to speak freely, when you have the right to not to be contaminated by terrible pollution, and so on. So I will not say, in the name of relativism and so on, that every political regime are equivalent. I don't believe so. I really think that Europe invented an idea which does not belong to Europe, that migrated to America, that has been adopted by a lot of parts of Latin America, that is incarnated in part of Asia, which is an universal idea, which is the idea of freedom, of equality, and so on. And China of today is not worshipping these values. And that's why I would be happy, I would not say that with surprise or not surprise, if there was one day a real Chinese Spring, a real cultural revolution, as the one I saw in my youth, of Chinese people saying it's good to have wealth, it's good to have gross product, it's good to have exportation, but it's good also to have human rights. I think that this would be a great news for humanity.
You said that Weiwei had this equivalence between political systems, but he does not have equivalence. He has a clear preference. He believes that authoritarian systems are superior to democracy. He explicitly said that democracy yields to bad governance, if I'm not mistaken. So my question to you, there are millions of people today in the world that live under bad governance systems, which are democracies. China has a different view, and therefore countries tend to be very tempted to export their models. They like to see what they do replicated elsewhere. So would you recommend to your government to go out in the world and promote what you think is good governance and less promote the cause of less democracy or non-democracy?
Actually, it depends on how do you define democracy. I like this Nexus Forum because you said at the very beginning, we discussed the real meaning of democracy, real democracy. But unfortunately, so far what we see, as shown in Arab Spring, about one person, one vote, a multi-party system, that's at the best procedural democracy. That's not necessarily the real democracy. Real democracy is far more important, as you said, about education, about many other important ideals. In terms of China, let me quote from everybody knows Confucius. Yeah. And he said, people are like water. Regime or leaders are like boat. Water can carry the boat, can also overturn the boat. So if you look at the China model in particular, the key message is stay in touch with your people. It's so easy. If you go to Africa, don't go there with your brilliant ideas. I respect your preference, it's understandable. But you do some surveys. What are they care about most? Fighting poverty, fighting disease, street security, safety, etc., job creation. You do this accordingly, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how China did.
Would you recommend the rest of the world to go that way? and repress the options that he described.
No, it's not his definition. It's really people should sit down and discuss what kind of political system
We're
with
doing
your
that.
people.
We're doing that.
Yeah, we should experiment. China offer an option, which is very interesting because we have the 4 decades of successful
And
experience.
your opinion is that China should export that view?
Xi
Should
Jinping
actively-
said in his report, China's experience can offer a entirely new alternative for those countries and nations who desire for quick modernization and complete independence.
It is going to be a state-supported export.
No, it's not.
I'm joking.
Actually, Chinese are very modest. I'm being slightly less modest. China do not export its model, do not advocate its model. But once you are successful, if you go to Africa, people talk about looking east. They have tried the Western model for decades, not working, So look to the east.
May I just
Yeah.
talk here about
Great.
about the oppressed Muslim minority? So don't tell me that everybody is fine. There is an oppressed minority in China. And then I want to bring up something else here with it, in terms of terrible things that are happening today, like in Syria. And it's what is happening to the Rohingya Muslims. And the way I look at it is, I thought it was never again. And to me, never again meant a Muslim or a Christian or Jewish or Yazidis or black or white or any color. But today we are seeing a genocide. And I don't see, China has also quite a lot of influence in a place like Burma, like Myanmar. Apart from, I don't want to even talk about North Korea, but I don't see anybody doing anything for the Muslims in Myanmar or the Muslims in China.
Let me answer you this question first.
Yeah, no, because I do believe it's important, because, because I do believe we go in a conversation in which you are saying how good you are, we're saying that you're not very good. But in a certain way, the problem is that part of the Western democracy is also a problem today is that we lost curiosity on the others. Obviously, China's legitimacy is not based on caution only. And if we're not seeing this, we're basically playing a game. But on the other side, I do believe what you're also giving is a totally uncritical story, because every political regime is successful under certain conditions and not others. I do believe one of the biggest problems that we forgot what are the real advantages of democracy. The real advantage of democracy is not simply rights, but this is that when people are disappointed, you're giving them a mechanism through which they can react. Democracy is not famous for doing the right things, but democracy is famous for changing the governments that people don't like without violence. My question is the following. The Chinese system at the moment, in my view, works fine based on an incredibly important economic performance. How strong is the system if economic performance is not there? So if we want to be serious, we should be open to the vulnerability of both regimes, because otherwise we go in a rhetorical story, which probably good opera performance, but it is not helping us more. And just on Bernardo and Lévy, I do believe that the Spanish government should be very happy that you went to Kurdish regions and didn't end up in Catalonia at the same moment.
And I think that China will not go so far as you think, and maybe as China deserves, if she stays on this path. If you really believe that the Rohingya problem is a problem of faith, if you really believe that the Uyghur problem is a problem of religion, it means that really your leadership has not understood how really a great power has to work in order to succeed, because it is a human rights question. It is a democratic subject, and it is not NGOs of the West who are, this is a plot theory, it's absurd. It is people who are in despair. The Rohingya, it's a terrible, nobody knew. No, let me finish. Nobody knew in the West, except a few of us, who the Rohingya were. They are the most miserable people in the world. They have no rights. They have nearly no identity.
Have you been to that region?
No identity.
Have you been to this region? I've been there many times.
Of course I have been.
You have to see the rapid rising standards of people's life.
I have been. Alas, I am elder than you. And I went to this
It's not
area.
age of age.
No. Wait a
Whether
minute.
you can seek truth or
I
facts.
went in this
With
area.
all these surveys, I'll give you another figure.
I spent my
The
youth.
latest OPSIS
Between Bangladesh and Burma. I know
traveled 100 countries,
exactly
most of
what
the
is
developing
the
countries.
fate of a cursed Muslim people
Yeah,
in this environment.
But impose
I
the
know
system
who
on
the
them creates
Rohingyas
more
are.
disaster.
I know that they are man deprived of any rights.
Yeah.
And I
The
know
world is
that
not
in
perfect.
front of that,
Yeah.
you cannot feel
Yeah.
something else than despair. And they are despaired. And that's why they revolted. And the way in which they are treated is
Levy.
scandalous. Okay, mind your own business first. I don't agree.
It's 89% versus 12% satisfaction.
who dares
We
to
know the
speak in
result.
China anyway?
You know really too little about China. Little knowledge is dangerous. We have 130 million visits abroad, 3 million students
Don't attack
abroad.
me
We
about
still
my
don't
knowledge
know.
because that's not the right way to go
No,
about
even
it.
with that, we cannot agree to your interpretation.
I would like to bring in something different.
In this dialogue, Zhang Weiwei presents a core argument. China's political system is not a copy of Western democracy, but a modern governance model rooted in civilizational tradition, focused on governance effectiveness and public satisfaction. Several key conclusions emerge from the discussion. First, unlike the end of history narrative that dominated Western thought after the Cold War, Zhang Weiwei does not accept that liberalism plus market economy plus electoral democracy is the ultimate form of human governance. China adopts gradual, continuous reforms, each optimization driven by real-world feedback and practical needs. Second, China is a civilizational state, with governance logic distinct from Western nation-states. It cannot be measured by Western democratic frameworks, and political crises should not be used to force leadership change. Unlike procedural Western democracy, China emphasizes results. True democracy means improving people's lives, not maintaining a formal system of universal participation and elections. Third, regarding whether China intends to export its model, Zhang Weiwei argues that it does not. Instead, China's success naturally attracts attention abroad. Increasingly, countries are looking east, but this is not about replacing one system with another. It is about mutual learning. Fourth, he rebuts Western criticism, minorities, and human rights, stressing that external understanding of China is seriously lacking, and that Western media narratives often diverge sharply from reality. Interestingly, the woman raising concerns about Xinjiang, Shaha Riza, was originally Libyan, worked for the National Endowment for Democracy and the Future Fund promoting democracy in the Middle East and North Africa, and now holds dual citizenship. Ultimately, this dialogue reminds us that China's model is not a replacement for Western democracy, nor is it a universal solution. The deeper question is, does a single ultimate form of human governance even exist? Should we aim for a world with multiple modern political systems, or one that relies solely on Western-style democracy? Perhaps the most important reflection is, why do we seek a single endpoint for human governance? Could this desire itself be a form of intellectual laziness? This question may be more significant than any ideological debate. If you're interested in exploring this further, please share your thoughts in the comments. We are gathering more rational voices, so don't forget to subscribe, like, and share our channel.